Right guys, I'm Jack Hughes. Welcome to my latest series in my video blog diary. This time we're at my syndicate, Rodney Meadow in the Colne Valley. We've come down with my mate Jack for a 4-day session. We've come straight from work, it's Friday afternoon. We got here about 12 o'clock. The first thing we did, we jumped out of the van, grabbed a couple of buckets and we did a couple of laps around the lake to see if we could find a fish. Sure enough, the fish were where we thought they were going to be. There's a big weed bed which has just sprung up in the centre of the lake, and the majority of the fish look like they're held up in there. Had the benefit of going up to be able to view them from a ladder to get a different viewpoint, and sure enough you can just see them drifting in between the weed out there. So that helped us with our swim choice. So the swims we picked give us good access to that weed bed, but also, just as importantly, that they're swims that we fished before and they're swims that we caught fish from before as well. So it gives you that little bit more peace of mind that if you're not catching, you know it's because the fish aren't there. Now, my swim is a swim called the Wall. Now, if I'm completely honest, it's probably a swim that gets overlooked quite a lot here on the venue. It's quite overgrown. There's big trees either side of you. There's not a lot of room to cast in. The swim's not the best kept swim on the whole venue. I think it gets overlooked a lot for those reasons. But a couple of weeks back, I was forced to go in here because of lack of other swim availability at the time, and my mate Terry's had fish from here in the past, so I knew that it could do fish, and yeah, I had a few fish over it, and I've been fishing it recently as well, and I've been consistently catching, so I was happy that the fish were showing in the area they were, so I could continue to fish this swim really, because I know I've got my spots sorted. So just to tell you a little bit about those spots, fishing at 19.5 wraps towards the weed bed to a nice little clear area just in front of it. And then on my side of that is a big eelgrass weed bed. So it's sort of a bit of weed, clear area, and then you've got the big weed bed out there as well. There's also a few nice little gravel humps out there as well, a few little bars. So it's got everything I want out there really. In terms of how I'm going to approach it, I'm going to use 2 rigs. So the first rig I'm going to use is the Rodney rig, and I'm going to be using that on 2 rods. Now those rods I'm going to be looking to fish in on the bars, or maybe just off the bars. The clearest areas basically that I can find in the swim. Now my second choice of rig is going to be the hinge stiff rig. Now that rig I'm going to be looking for a slightly longer drop, maybe into one of those silty channels where there might be a little bit more debris on the floor, maybe a little bit of dead weed or detritus down there at all. So I want something that I know that's just going to lie over that and still make it available for the fish. So going into the first night, I'm confident. So if you don't see me later on tonight, hopefully you'll see me in the morning. Now this swim has been doing bites recently from about 6 o'clock in the morning to about 9 o'clock the latest. So I'm not too confident about getting one in the night, but fingers crossed in the morning we should be able to do a fish or 2. So hopefully we'll see you then.
Till I see the you.
No. No. Oh no.
absolute result. First one that ripped off this morning, this one on the Rodney rig, fished on the bar, about 90 yards, made up for one I lost just before it, so over the moon. And it's been a bit of a hectic morning as well. Had another one, just ripped off straight away after this, double take, and I've had one while we've just been doing the pictures as well. So let's get this one back, sorry, and then we'll show you the other ones. Banger, isn't it? Right, it's the second one of the double take I had this morning. I lost one just before them both actually. Rod ripped off at 10 to 4. Unfortunately I lost it in a tree close in. Then literally probably about 5 o'clock, left hand rod tore off into battle, managed to land that one in the net. And literally as that one's got in the net, the middle rod's ripped off as well. Playing it came in quite easy to be honest, but when it hit the surface, saw this one had a nice bit of head and shoulders on it, and it was definitely a big fish. So this one's gone 25 pound, 8 ounces. It's fallen on the Rodney rig. Actually, sorry, no, this one's actually come on the hinge stiff rig actually. Lovely. So let's get him back. What a crazy morning. So this is the third one I've had. This common's gone 19.8. Little battle scars all over him. He's obviously been spawning up. So as I said, crazy morning. This one's fallen on the Rodney rig again. All the fish have come over a big bed of eclipse virus. Spotted them out yesterday, and it seems to have done the trick. So I'm gonna get this one back, and I'll show you how I tied the rigs up and on. Lovely. Right then, what a morning. 3 fish to over 25 pound, the biggest being an absolute stunner. Couldn't have really gone any better. Now, the rigs are clearly working, and I'm using 2 different types of rigs on this session. The first one is the Rodney rig. I'm fishing then on top of the bars, where I know it's slightly clearer. There might be a little bit of low-lying blanket weed, but the rig's going to suspend the bait over anything which could be lying on the bottom. Now the second rig, which has probably done me the most fish so far this session, is the hinge stiff rig. Now I'm fishing that in the silty channels in between the bars where there is a lot more weed, and that's going to lie over anything which could be on the bottom and still make it presentable for the carp. So what I'm going to do now is just run you through how I tie that up. First up, take a section of chop filament and one of our ring swivels. Second, pass that through the eye, then form a 2-turn blood knot by whipping up the chop filament twice, passing it back through the loop at the top, then using a tag end, start to gently pull the knot down. Then make sure you moisten the knot, and then with your fingers, start to coax the knot down, pull it tight to make sure you really bed that knot down. Then simply grab a pair of scissors and cut the tag end down. Now pass the chop filament through the front of the eye, then form a loop level with the shank of the hook. Now start to whip that loop up the shank of the hook about 6 or 7 times. Then using a tag end, start to gently pull that knot down to form the whipping knot. However, don't pull it down too tight because you won't be able to push it down the shank later on. Then with a puller tool, pull the whipping knot down the shank towards the eye of the hook. Then grab one of our rig rings, then slide the rig ring on the tag end, which should be coming out of the top of the whipping knot. Then pass that tag end through the back of the eye to create your D. I pull that down as far as it will go at this point. Little tip for you here. What I do is I use a packet of hooks or a packet of swivel and use the flap on the back to protect the hook link on the rig while I'm burning down the tag end. Once you've burned it down, Give it a little tap with the end of the lighter just to blob it down to make sure it's all secure. Now use a puller tool to create the loop on the D-rig. And there you have it, you have your hook link section complete. Now it's time to create the boom section. For this I use our coated armour in 20 pound. Right, then just cut off as much as you need. I generally use about 9 or 10 inches. I'm going to attach the hook link using a grinner knot. First off, pass the hook link through the back of the eye twice, then form a loop and start to pass the tag end through the loop about 5 or 6 times. Once you've done that, use the tag end to gently coax the knot down, then moisten the knot, and with your thumbs and your fingers start to gently coax the knot down towards the eye of the swivel. Make sure you don't pull it too tight, otherwise you could rip the coating. Once you've completely bedded the knot down, then you can start to pull it tighter to make sure the knot is not going to fail. Now just trim down your tag ends. The next thing I do is I form a loop with the end of the hook link. Then using a figure of 8 knot, I then use this to create a loop at the end of the hook link. Make sure you're really careful when you're pulling the knot down tight, again not to rip any of the coating. You generally want this loop to be about 1 inch long. I then pass the loop through the swivel. I then push the other end of the swivel through the other end of the loop and pull it down tight. Now just give the hook link a big pull just to tighten everything down. Grab yourself a bit of putty and start to mould that round the grinner knot on the top of the hook link and round the eye on the rig ring. Try and mould it round as neat as you can. I like to have it so it tapers down towards the hook link. Then grab another blob of putty, you don't need a lot. Mould that across the middle of the hook link. Spend your time to make sure it's nice and neat. It will just make the difference to make sure everything's pinned down when it's out there on the lake bed. And that is how I tie my hinge stiff rig. Last thing to do is just give it a steam over a kettle just to make the rig nice and straight. Right, so those are the rigs which I'm using on this session. The traps are set. We're going into the second evening. If we don't have anything tonight, fingers crossed we might be able to nick one in the morning. Right, only the one for me this morning. This one's ripped off about 6:30 in the morning. It's on 25 pound 9 ounces. It's the biggest one so far, only just though. Put an absolute fight up in the margins, trying to get into the trees either side of me. Everything held strong and managed to slip it into the net. So well happy with this. Getting the hinge stiffs doing the damage, and those eclipse squid and tooty pop-ups taking another victim. So let's get this one back. Still looks like there's time for another one maybe. Fingers crossed, you never know. So let's see what the morning brings. Right then, good afternoon. It's Sunday, just after lunch, and just to tell you a little bit about how today's gone. So it started off really well. About 6:30, the right hand rod's pulled up tight, jumped out of bed, hooked into a fish. It felt like a bit of a bigger fish than what I've been having. To be honest though, at the start it came in quite easily. I think a bit of weed had got over the fish's head, but once it got down in the margins, it was trying to get into either snag either side of me. Got up an absolute scrap underneath the rod tip, but eventually I managed to land it, and that turned out to be the biggest one I've had so far over the last 2 nights, coming in at 25 9 ounces, so only just the biggest one I've had, but yeah, it was a fairly nice fish. But then things just took a bit of a turn for the worse. So about 9:30, the right hand rod's absolutely torn off, and I've hooked into it immediately. This was definitely a bigger fish. But, you know, they always feel like it anyway when you lose them, but you know, this one was flat rodding me. It was taking line. I was trying to stop it getting the weed obviously, but I had to let it go. It felt like a powerful fish. So yeah, I thought I had it in control and I was bringing it back, and then all of a sudden I got cut off. I don't know if that was because maybe it was coming over one of the bars, or maybe it got cut off on one of the weed beds. It's hard to say, but absolutely gutted about that because it did feel like a decent fish. So just to rub salt into the wounds as well, about 11:30, this time the middle rod's ripped off. Now admittedly this one didn't feel as big as the first one did, but again I think a bit of wee got over the fish's head and it started to come in nice and easy on the surface. You could see it out in the middle of the lake coming in, and then all of a sudden I had a hook pull and the fish stayed up on the surface for about another 10 seconds. It was obviously caught in the weed up there, but yeah, it was strange. If I'm honest, maybe I should have changed the hooks around last night just to make sure they were as sharp as could be. Maybe it's a little bit of lazy angling on my behalf, but we won't be making that mistake again. So unfortunately Jack's not had anything yet. Another member, Clive though, who's fishing on the same bank as us, a couple of swims down, he had a couple out last night, including an absolutely stunning 25-pound common. That was really nice, got to do the pics for him. Dan, who was here yesterday as well, he managed an upper double. But yeah, so we're going into the third night. I'm still feeling confident. Obviously the fish are still feeding on the spots. Put a bit of bait out again yesterday and the fish are clearly moving in on it. Again, we're still using the virus. So we'll see how tonight goes, and if we have some few more fish then I think we're staying here, but otherwise maybe we consider a move in the morning. So if you don't see us between now and then we haven't had anything. Otherwise hopefully we'll see you in the morning with another carp. See you later, peace. Right, nothing for us last night. I was really confident going into tonight after having a few fish over the last couple of days, but for one reason or another it didn't materialise. We woke up this morning to absolutely blistering heat and the fish have started spawning again. So instead of fishing for spawning fish, we've decided to knock it on the head. We've had a really good couple of days. I've had over 4 fish, 2 over 25-pound and 2 upper doubles. Jack's managed to get amongst them as well, so really happy with how we've done. Just want to say thanks to Colin for obviously letting us do the filming on here. He keeps the lake in really good condition, and it's a really top lake. So give it a couple of days, let the fish do what they want to do, and then we'll be back down to see if we can have a few more. See you again soon.
Let's play